Thank you all for your attendance. We've got quite a few apologies, unfortunately, this morning, but we are corporate. And welcome to James. I know James is a busy man, but thanks for coming today, James. All right, Julie, apologies, please. Sorry, yeah, and of course it's Richard's first meeting. He's a new co-optee, so welcome, Richard. Thanks for attending. I'll see him that after council. I forget he's new today.
Apologies, Chair, from Mr Ward, Mrs Edgeley, Mr Peters, Mr Afsar, Mr Flunder.
Right, declarations of interest. We don't normally get any, but I have to ask these questions. I know we're all interested, that's why we're all here. Moving on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of December. Can I have someone's approval that they're a correct record? Philippa, and seconded by Janice. Are there any matters arising from those minutes at all? Hello. Right. So we come on to the very important external audit plan for 21-22, and that's, I think, Lisa, do you want to introduce? Do you want to introduce him? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. My colleague from EY, Hassan Rahim Mun, will take you through the external audit plan for 21-22. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's Hassan Rahim, and we're not the first person to get it wrong. That's okay, don't worry about it. So I'll take you through our 21-22 audit plan, which is on the agenda for the committee today. So first of all, in terms of taking you through section 1, which provides an overview of the strategy. So on page 5 of the document, it highlights the risks and the areas of focus which we've identified from planning processes, and also outlines whether there's a change in the focus or the risk from the previous year. The risks that we've identified there are the risks of fraud in revenue recognition, and the next one, misstatements due to fraud and error. Members of the committee may be familiar that these risks are presumed by international standards and auditing. We're highlighting there, providing a summary of the details of the risks. The next one, the third one, valuation of property, plant and equipment. So land and building valuations that form a significant proportion of the council's balance sheet's assets, and it is an area which is subject to estimation and the input from a professional expert in terms of the council's valuer. So we've highlighted that as a significant risk area, and we'll be undertaking the procedures in relation to those. We also continue to have disposals of schools converting to academies as an area of focus, because there can potentially be errors in terms of accounting for those transactions. The local government pension scheme, the IS19 disclosures, which are in the financial statements, again an area which is subject to the input of an expert. So the council has the actuary, which provides officers with the reports and disclosures which appear within the financial statements, and that's an area which we engage our own experts on to inform us for the testing that we undertake in relation to those areas. Group accounts, we have that as an area of focus. So there are a number of investments and holdings that the council has, and just looking to make sure that the assessment is undertaken properly, and that the council does not need to prepare group financial statements. Private finance initiative accounting. So the council has 4 schemes. They are the accounting for those schemes are complex, and so we've highlighted that as an area of focus. The next one, going concern, is a risk which we identify on a number of our audits. It's ensuring that the Council does have the financial resources to continue to operate as a going concern, although we do recognise that within the public sector context, the continuity of services is also a key issue that needs to be considered, and that is almost assumed in most cases. And then the final one, which we've got down, is infrastructure assets. So again, members of the committee may be familiar with issues that arose in the previous year regarding the accounting for infrastructure assets. SIPFA has produced updated guidance. The council is now looking to apply the statutory override in relation to that, but because it's a change in the disclosure requirements, we're highlighting it there as an area of focus. Also within section 1 on page 8, we provide a summary of the materiality levels that we'll be using to undertake our audit, and confirm the scope and the responsibilities that we have as external auditors. I won't take you through in detail the rest of the report, but section 2 provides more details on in relation to the risks which I've just gone through, and also the procedures that we'll be undertaking in response to those risks. Within section 3 of the report, we provide an overview of our responsibilities in respect of value for money. So we have responsibility to look at the arrangements that the council has in place under criteria defined by the National Audit Office. We report on by exception if we identify any significant weaknesses in arrangements, and within section 3 for each of the 3 areas we outline what the focus of our work is and the procedures that we'll be undertaking in relation to those areas where we have a responsibility. Section 4 provides further details on the materiality levels that we'll be using to undertake our audit. Section 5 outlines the scope of our audit, providing more information on the scope of our audit. Within section 6 we summarise details of the team, including specialists that we'll be using in undertaking our work. On section 7 we provide a summary of the timeline, and within section 8 we confirm our independence, so there are no issues that we're aware of which may compromise our independence in terms of undertaking the audit. And then section 9 contains the appendices, which also includes details of the fees for the audit. Happy to take any questions which members may have.
Good morning. Thank you for that. As ever, a lot of information contained in there. Can I just ask for an elaboration on 2 points? So one on the property, plant, equipment, land and buildings. That is the valuation that's been done, that's been adjusted, as opposed to disposals that have been impacted on that. And then my second question is regarding converting schools, going through academisation. And the level of impact that has had on the figures that are in here, and that the understanding is correct going forwards on when that transfer actually happens. So a bit more detail on both of those, if I may.
So the first one wanted more explanation as to why land and buildings is identified as a risk area. Is that correct? The valuation of land and buildings is an area which is, as I said, subject to, so in terms of disclosures which the council makes, it's an area which the council engages their own experts, so a valuer, to provide information on factors that may be relevant in terms of coming up with a valuation for land and buildings. I'm not a valuer, so when I'm looking at those disclosures which are in the financial statements, then need to make an assessment of whether all of those assumptions in terms of yields, the lives of the assets, the market factors that are relevant within local areas, a local particular area are appropriate, and in doing so we undertake procedures in terms of comparing what's out there in respect of readily available information, and we also look to engage our own valuation specialists to provide us with an assessment as a team as to whether or not the valuations which the council's valuer has come up with are within a reasonable range. So that's one of the reasons why it's identified as a significant risk, because it is an area which is subject to estimation and is prepared by an expert. The second question in terms of account for academy schools, so that one it's really looking at whether the disposal in terms of the transfer has properly been reflected within the council's financial statements, and so it's undertaking testing to make sure it's been written out correctly, and the figures that are disclosed within the financial statements of the council are true and fair. Hope that answers the questions.
It does.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rahim. Very comprehensive as always, and most of those are on our risk register anyway, so I think all of them are. So it's good. It looks like we're going in the right direction for most things. I just wanted to add a little bit of what Janice has just said. On my first couple of meetings on audit and standards, when I got on here 6 years ago, there was we did something on the how much all our properties were worth, and I asked, how did they check these over? How did they work out how much they were worth? And we were using Zoopla. Well, I showed someone how on Zoopla you can change it to whatever you want, because I'd done it with my own house to wind up my next door neighbour, and I turned theirs down just for a bit of fun. So we did then go out and get everything valued properly. So that was a few years back now. So I do feel we're in a happier place as far as knowing what the value is of all the property we own. So just a little bit of information going back about 6 years. So, but yeah, I'm very, very pleased with this report. Actually, I think it shows that we are going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Also on the agenda was providing an update as to where we are currently on the audit. Would you like me to do that now? Oh, okay. Sorry, Chair. Thank you, Chair. So currently, in respect of the 21-22 audit, which I've just presented our plan for. So the team have been undertaking the audit and progressing the audit. So they've undertaking our planning procedures and undertaking some initial testing on transactions relating to the 21-22 financial statements. Members will be aware that because of the infrastructure accounting issue, the 2021 accounts hadn't yet been concluded. We received towards the end of last week updated financial statements and disclosures in respect of the council's accounting for infrastructure assets. So we're now in the process of reviewing those, and once that has been undertaken, the 2021 audit should be able to be concluded.
Just got one little question. I didn't quite understand how this redeemable share at Vernon Parks Property Management, how does that work? If you can just explain a little bit about that to me, because although I've been in council a long time, it seems an odd one to me. Why would we want a redeemable share? I understand having like 100% of Nexus and all that. I don't quite understand how that works. If you can't explain today,
yeah, I think in terms of the details of that particular arrangement. It might be one which officers would need to provide further explanation on.
Yeah.
I think we've identified it as an
non-material.
area of focus in terms of the factors that you consider in assessing whether or not you need to prepare group financial statements.
Clarify that.
Yes, Chairman. I will actually take that back to the Director of Finance, and we can bring a briefing paper next
Yeah, that's fine.
Times Committee, or we can circulate it to members outside of the meeting as an update. Okay, thank you.
Sandra, thank you very much for coming, and I look forward to providing further information on the audit progress. Thank you. Is it you, Lisa, next?
It is, yes.
Over to you, Lisa.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Members will recall that I've brought several papers over the last few committees in relation to the appointment of the next round of external audit appointments. This particular paper confirms who will be our external auditor for the financial year 23-24 for a period of 5 years. That will be KPMG. We went through the public sector appointments process, public sector audit appointments process, and that was the individual firm that has been allocated to Staffordshire. I think main point to pull out of the paper relates to paragraph 6. Just for members' information, it is flagging a potential increase of fees going forward from 23-24, and that is in direct response to the issues that came out of the Redmond report regarding the state of the external audit market. So hopefully that increased investment in the audit process will ensure that we get a more stable audit arrangement going forward. That's everything that I wanted to raise on this particular item. I'm happy to take any questions in relation to the details. Thank you.
Janice?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. I think we've already established the premise about we're in the group, so that's not obviously an area that is up for debate as such. But with regards to the increase in fees, is it still providing value for money as to whether or not we were to go on our own? Just as a comparison. Thank you.
It is anticipated that by having the joint procurement through PASA that you would get economies of scale in terms of the fees, the appointment process that we would have to go through, and the investment in that would obviously add additional costs to any potential fee that you may negotiate down on a local basis. I think in terms of how much it would be in comparison, I wouldn't be able to give you that sort of percentage fee here, but all the firms are experiencing difficulties in terms of auditor retention, so the fact that they've got the contracts to fulfil under PASA that might be the bigger draw on the audit resource rather than just one local body contract standing alone. The vast majority of local authorities, it's well into the 90s, have gone through the procurement route offered by PASA.
Yeah, come back.
To be honest, that was exactly what I anticipated, just to say, because of the vast majority that's already in there. But I always think it's worthwhile, as in one of the categories on there, is what is the alternative? In reality, there probably is no realistic alternative. But I think we always have to ask the question. Thank you.
I don't think none of us are happy with the huge increase of, unfortunately, due to this problem with retention. It's caused a problem with getting our audit done, as you know yourself. It seems an ongoing saga, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll get there in the end. Have you got something, Caroline?
Yeah, I would just like to make a comment. I may be one on my own here, but actually I was really pleased to see the increase. 4 years ago we were at that sort of amount anyway. So we're only going back to where we was. And for me, the delay in getting the accounts through is just unacceptable. And if it means that we need to throw more money at it, or the proper amount of money that we used to, I, for one, would always vote for it. We need this job done. It's very, very important.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Lisa, do we benchmark these figures? Are they benchmarked by the company that does the procurement?
Thank you. I haven't seen any benchmark figures. Audit groups tend to discuss the external audit fee as part of their regular discussions. I'd ask and benchmark those with the various groups that we go to and come back to you.
I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's fair.
They're
Right,
in, sorry, could I just ask, Chair, they're indicative at the moment, so there will be some time lag between getting those as well. Sorry.
Yes, all right. It's back to you again, really, Sir. Agenda item 7.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I've got a presentation this time. This is the first time I've done a presentation as well for a while, so I've had a little practice with the clicker. So bear with me if if we go astray. Okay. So the presentation that I wanted to bring to you today was to have a look at the new guidance that's come out in relation to the review of the effectiveness of the Audit and Standards Committee. So this is the guidance that's available for us as practitioners and yourselves as Audit Committee members. It's published by the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. It's seen as best practice, and it's an update on the guidance that's been in place for several years. You may recall guidance that came out last updated was in 2018. So this time there's a little bit more information, and they've made it available electronically. In the past it has been in a single book that's been quite expensive to purchase and has been difficult to circulate amongst members. The 2018 version did come out on email and it was circulated to all members. This time, again, it's more accessible than that, because, again, it's available electronically, but there's been a specific guide that's available for Audit Committee members. So it's a special sort of supplementary guidance that's specifically available to yourselves and outlines what the Audit Committee is about, how it operates, and your role within that. What I would propose is, after this meeting, is that is circulated to all members to help you in your duties. It also pulls out the position statement with regard to audit committees. This previously was within the whole of the guidance, and the position statement also covered police authorities as well, so it covered both local authorities and police authorities. This time the guidance has made that separation, which is easy as well. In terms of how we evaluate the Audit and Standards Committee, how it operates, there are two interactive appendices that are contained within the document, both at Appendix E and F, that talk about how we can assess good practice and then also how we evaluate the effectiveness of this particular committee. Okay, so that's the updated guidance. Within that document, I felt that there was a really useful pictorial, diagrammatical representation of everything that's in that guidance pulled together to give you a snapshot of what are the key aspects of an effective and influential audit committee. And that influential word is something that is heavily sort of caveated through the guidance. Before we've been effective, they've added the influential audit committee aspect within this round. Okay, so thought it'd be useful to pull out what's changed really since the 2018 version. I don't propose to go through all of those, but just to pick out some key aspects. There is a greater focus on the ethical framework. Members may recall that when I bring the Code of Corporate Governance framework annually to the committee, we talk about the various principles of good corporate governance, and they've pulled out the principle A, behaving with integrity, demonstrating strong commitment to ethical values and respecting the rule of law, and really linked that through to the work of the Audit and Standards Committee. On page 2, there's a new section as well on supporting and making the best use of audit, both internal and external, so it's expanding that guidance as to how we can work effectively with you. Greater emphasis on the external audit value for money report, and together with recognising those wider range of partnerships and subsidiaries and traded services that a particular local authority may have, and also the Audit Committee's role and remit within that governance aspect. And that links through to 2 items that are on the agenda today in the confidential part when we talk about governance within companies, that both my colleagues Kate Loader and Debbie Harris will take you through. And then you also get the issues in relation to the appointment of independent members, and we've raised that and discussed that previously. So again, there's a little bit more further information in relation to that guidance regarding a local authority member taking part in the audit committee. Again, talking through those various elements in there. Okay, there's various appendices that have been included within the material, together with some suggested terms of reference, knowledge and skills framework of individuals who serve on a committee, and how their problem-solving difficulties with the audit committee can overcome barriers to effectiveness. So giving you a toolkit to be able to help you navigate through those individual processes. So in terms of, I thought it'd be useful just to run over and include within the presentation those key requirements that an audit committee is there to do. So we've got what an audit committee is there for. It's about the looking at the governance arrangements, presence within the authority, and evaluating those, ensuring that you get to see the sufficient assurances from officers and the reports that come through to you to be able to gain comfort that we have an effective system of governance, which again comes back to you through the annual governance statement that you approve as part of the accounts. There is the call for a minimum of 2 independent members to add additional technical expertise. Now, this is guidance. This is for the committee to make that decision as to whether or not that's something that they wish to go through and take on board. We did do an exercise in 2019 which considered this particular aspect, and it was considered that we wouldn't, at that point in time, look to appoint a member. So an audit committee, the benefits of an audit committee to an organisation are that it adds a valuable resource to add value through influence, commitment and energy to that evaluation process of the governance arrangements. It acts as a focal point to support good governance and appropriate stewardship of public assets and resources. And it is cited it's cited on any significant control weaknesses, of which you get to see through the internal audit reports, both those limited assurance items and any special investigations that are undertaken. So you get to see those. And also that the audit committee is accountable to full council, and they talk about including an annual report that goes through on the reporting back to full council on the effectiveness of the control environment. The next few slides, I summarised the core functions of the Audit Committee. Just as a reminder, that's what we're there to do. I don't propose to go through all of those in significant detail. I'm happy to take any questions on those. I think pulled out some additional considerations from the 2022 guidance. It does recognise the complexity of the financial accounts and financial statements that come to you for approval. So it does recommend that additional attention is given to this area when you consider your own individual training needs in order to be an effective member of this committee. So just to be mindful, do you need additional training over and above what Rachel provides? Would you like a sort of more of a workshop arrangement to take that forward? It is that engagement as well between the head of audit and the committee. I'd like to think that between myself and Debbie we've got that engagement working effectively, but we're always open to suggestions if you feel that that needs to be strengthened in any way. There is guidance that's coming out to leadership teams from SITFA in relation to the assurance frameworks that are around. The guidance talks about the 3 lines of defence, and you've probably heard us talk about those previously. So how does that get embedded within the organisation, and how does the Audit Committee gain assurance that those 3 lines of defence do actually work effectively? Talks about audit KPIs, so that you can hold internal audit to account. Having a look at those 5 that are highlighted there, I feel that we present those to you as part of the outturn report. But again, if you feel that you want some additional information, then please let us know. I think one action for us, we have done it in the past. We probably need to update that particular aspect, is in relation to sharing the Financial Reporting Council's annual report on the quality of local audit, i.e. the external auditor, and the quality reviews of firms. So we'll look to bring that back and incorporate that aspect within the forward plan. So I come to the recommendations of my presentation, really, from the work that we've done to look at the new guidance, is firstly to re-look at how we benchmark ourselves against the information in those 2 Appendix E and F, to look at our effectiveness. And that was the workshop that we've put into your diaries as a provisional date on the 23rd of May, to have a facilitated workshop to look through those individual details. We'll take away and review the Audit Committee terms of reference and make sure that they reflect best practice, and bring those back to a future meeting. We'll look at the issue of the independent members, and we'll also, as part of the work and dovetail into the work that you'll hear about later in the agenda in relation to the Audit Committee's role regarding partnerships, collaborations and subsidiaries, to clarify that. In terms of the annual report that goes through to full council, we do produce an annual report that comes to this particular committee for the chairman to take through to full council. And we'll look at the external audit annual report as well, being received by full council as part of that annual report as well. And then just make sure that we've got the appropriate assurances in place surrounding ethical frameworks. That was probably a key one that's also come out of the various public interest reports as well, that have looked at governance failings within other local authorities and subsidiaries. So they were the recommendations to go through and to have a look at the effectiveness of the Audit and Standards Committee, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Graham?
Thank you. Do you feel that this committee challenges you, Lisa?
Thank you. Yes, I do. Yes, I think in terms of the questions and the the points that are raised in relation to those reports that are brought to you, then yes, I've also seen it in action where you've also challenged the members, officers rather, that come to talk to members regarding what actions have been taken in respect of audit reports that have come through to you, and you've definitely held them to account in order to make sure that they are on track with their recommendations, and that does help when we're doing audits, and that we're chasing recommendations as well through the work that Debbie does on that side. So yes, I do.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a quite interesting report, and thank you very much. It's bringing back all those little bits of knowledge from when I was on audit at Lichfield. But I am referring to that in terms of now the call for the minimum of 2 independent members. Now, I appreciate, obviously, previous to myself, that went under discussion and probably obviously decided not to have. Obviously, I don't want to pick up on that because a decision was made, but I gained a lot of value from independent members as a layman on an audit committee, and I certainly appreciated their expertise, and as it quite clearly says in here, it's often the technical, which often, you know, can whiz everybody over heads and so forth, and it can be a question, and I think it alludes to really what Graham was saying. Are we an effective audit committee? And you get the value, but the danger, in my opinion, is that we could be marking our own homework, and there is something there that somebody else might bring to the table that just that little oversight could actually be quite important. It's not, obviously, decision was made, but if it was with the new governance and there's a call for it, maybe it's worth reviewing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I don't know why somebody else on an audit committee can't even manage to turn a mic on. Perhaps it's a bad choice. Graham's question intrigued me, and I'm not sure, Chairman, there's a question here, but there's probably a statement. From my personal point of view, I have no background in audit and standards at all. I know a background in audit, probably not standards. So I look at some of this stuff, and I find it really challenging. So I have difficulty finding a question, genuinely so. When, for instance, I'm with the corporate parents, many years a foster carer, I'm well in my comfort zone, you know, and of course the health one's easier because we all go to doctors and whatever, so use your personal experience. On this one, I find it a real challenge, but at first I wondered why I was put on here. But then you look around and you see you need a wider skill set, so there's no question here. So there are times when I sit here absolutely quiet, which is unique in my world, because the reality is I can't see a question. But there are other times when we brought challenges, and Philip and I have talked about this, when we brought challenges and when there's been some real challenges within the systems, you don't need to know the numbers. You can just look at it and think, actually, that's wrong. So my take to you, Chairman, is thank goodness for people who really understand these figures. And thank goodness for the people like me, Philippa and others, who come at it from maybe a different angle. So, but I'm also saying, thank you, Philippa, I'm also saying that I get concerned sometimes that we don't dig deep enough because maybe we don't quite know. And I think that's all audit committees, or that is all committees where there's a challenge. So Graham's question intrigued me. And Mr. Chairman, I think we need to look at this from time to time, and we need to look at whether there's enough challenge there, because I've sat on district scrutiny committees where there's been no scrutiny at all. It hasn't existed. And on this committee, I feel a sense of responsibility. Because if anything goes wrong or we miss something, people are going to say, you waved that through, or you went through that. So my statement to you, Mr. Chairman, is we need to look from time to time to make sure we're on it and to make sure we are absolutely doing it, and that's the challenge for you, Mr. Chairman, and sense check that the people coming along to our committee, we never rude to them, but they are challenged, and I think it was a statement rather than a question there, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for indulging me as always.
Yeah, it's on the same theme actually. It was the independent members that I was intrigued about as well. To see if there's as an example that you could give us as to where there might be scenarios that might actually be something that we would benefit from. I don't know if you're able to do that now, or just to give us a bit of more of an idea as to when those situations might be more relevant than others.
That one, carry on.
Thank you. I'll try. I think that was a question that was actually raised as part of the 2019 discussion is how do they bring extra value that you wouldn't normally get within a member committee or from the membership. There were examples that were cited in that particular paper, and I can recirculate that and have a look. I think a lot of times it has been in relation to the technical scrutiny of accounts, but that was because those particular committee membership did not have that skill set on that. So I think whatever skill that you're going out to recruit as part of any independent member that you're looking at, you would probably need to do a gap analysis of the skills and attributes that you've got within your committee at the moment, so you are actively looking for a specific individual with certain skill sets. So it's what you haven't got within your cohort of fellow councillors that you would then go and look to recruit for that period of time that the Audit and Standards Committee has been formed for. I don't know whether or not, Hassan, you've actually come across the use of independent members at other authorities that you've been external auditors for?
So I have come across the use of independent members at another local authority, and obviously within other sectors than you do have members of audit committees who are independent as well. And I think as ever, it depends on the individuals and their skills and knowledge in terms of and also the I suppose just what they're like as individuals in terms of the level of scrutiny and challenge that they can bring to a committee. I think generally, it's a general comment. So generally, it does work well, particularly if you do get the right individuals on the committee.
Yeah, thank you. I think my experience with the service has been that there's an effective delivery and a response when I've been in touch. As far as what we do as members, I think this committee is far more effective when we are at full complement. And we do have then the variety of experiences that we then bring. So I think actually there may well be, in my opinion, a need for independent members if we are having a smaller representative group of us. If we have that broader group, then I think actually they're probably less required. But we do need to make sure that the one balances the other so that we do have that technical ability amongst a number of people in the room, would be my opinion.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more, Janice. We've got 9 members in here today, all Conservative. On the slide on page 23 or 9 in your slide, we're asked to make sure...
Politically balanced.
Yeah, politically balanced.
I think it's balanced perfectly, don't you?
We have no other party in here today, which actually it's something that we're not doing. So we do need, in my opinion, independent, in my opinion, we do need these 2 independent purely on that basis that it is only one party in here. We haven't got a balance at the minute. And so while we haven't got a balance, I think independents are really needed. Plus, it is SIPFA guidance, and I would always say, unless we are absolutely perfect, we should always follow SIPFA.
You are perfect, Caroline.
I wish.
Graham?
SIPFA.
So when I was a school governor, every year I had to fill in a spreadsheet of my skill set. And, you know, what's my finance ability? Well, I've got an MBA. I can read a spreadsheet. I can challenge a CFO. So you put all that down. We don't do that here, particularly. Perhaps that's what we should be doing. Now, when it comes to, can I just address one comment on your latest point, Carolyn, is that the Conservative Party is a broad party. We'll have a lot of different views along this bench, and I don't accept that an independent, they vote as well, so we don't know what they vote because we don't ask, so we don't know whether we're going to get, what happens if they're two Conservatives who no, so what I'm saying is I think we get into enormous difficulties when we bring party politics. My view is that this committee reads all the papers and asks all the difficult questions and does hold other officers to account, as Lisa alluded to earlier. So I think this committee is one of the strongest committees in this council. And and people don't like coming in front of us. They don't. So, so we challenge, and as long as we continue to do that, and we represent a broad set of views. I mean, Richard probably this morning, James and Richard disagreed with me about Earl Grey tea. quite strongly, and they've got quite strong views. Simple matter, but they have different views. We all have got different views, and but we're all of the same party. So I'm just saying that we've got to be very careful about if you're going to bring independence on, how independent are they? Thank you.
I'd like to concur. I do share Graham's view a little bit because I think it all depends on the quality of the independent person, and if they haven't got any sort of financial background or an accountancy background, I think it's very hard to question somebody like Lisa and Debbie. So that would be my concern, is how qualifies that independent person to come onto this committee. But I'll bring in Janice then now. You want to come back, Janice? Oh, Richard, no, Richard, sorry. Richard. But it's a different thing. Yeah, go on then.
I'm in line with, obviously not in line with well, yeah, with Graham. I think that Carolyn really hit the point that I was probably drifting towards. It is about the size of the committee, and it's workable. Now, if you're not getting the membership turning up, there's a concern there. Because, rightfully so, this is the most important committee within the structure of any form of council. And I think there's a danger that, take politics out of it, again you're talking to, if it's not a political drive, and let's say it's not, the perception of the public, not necessarily political, but is apolitical. And if it doesn't see that there is a level of independence, marking, and I use the phrase again, marking the homework, it makes it very difficult. Now, obviously, yes, I accept that if you've got a 15-person committee, and out of that 15, you've got a broad expertise, then it should be effective. But if you haven't, there is a danger of falling in to really self-imposed luxury of, well, We don't, yeah, we'll ask questions, but there may be that missing question that could unravel everything. And as independents go, certainly from previous knowledge, and I know that we don't have them at Lichfield anymore either, do we? But we used to. They were independent. They may have political views somewhere in the background, but they have to declare that they are independent on that panel. So unless you get them caught out, but they are independent of whatever's going on. So I know that I'm new to this committee, but I want to bring a little bit of what I used to be able to do, of being on an audit, and I think it was just audit committee actually. Standards was separate, but certainly the audit, and I'm in line with Carolyn. But that's not to say that we are down us. We're very much would value, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was the last bullet point on the recommendations was about the ethical frameworks. On every audit and member standards committee that I might be sitting on, it's one of those things that I've always asked a question, but the answer has always been so complicated. So I think that in the absence of anybody being out, it's such a subjective thing anyway, and people's interpretation of ethical standards, whether it's looking at, I know I've asked a question about our investments that we do as an organisation, but just so we've got a little bit more clarity on it, and it's not one of those things that appears to be a little bit too difficult. So we're not gonna really explore that one. So I'm pleased to see that on there. And that would be one that I personally would be very interested in getting more information about. Thank you.
Well, I think we'll close on that one.
Perfectly on time.
We're back over to Debbie now. Debbie Harris, agenda item 8. The Internal Audit Service External Quality Review. I think we've done a review, haven't we?
Yep, thank you, Chair.
Fire away.
So this report sets out the results of our external quality assessment that was carried out earlier this year, just after Christmas in January 2023. Just by way of some further background, so internal audit within the public sector is governed by the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards that came into being back in 2013, and since that date it's been revised a couple of times in 2016 and 2017. In addition, the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards are also supplemented by SIPFA's Local Government Application Note that was last revised in 2019. So all internal audit functions within the public sector are required to measure how well they conform to the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. And to cast your mind back, as part of the outturn, one of the sections within the outturn report is around compliance with the standards. So I undertake a self-assessment annually. However, we are required at least every 5 years to undertake an external quality assessment. And as part of that process, we went out for quotations, and SIPFA was our preferred supplier to undertake our external assessment this year. So the EQA took place the second week of January and lasted a whole week. And that takes the form of a lot of documentation that we have to produce, and the assessor goes about validating the self-assessment that I've previously have brought back to this committee. And there's an array of interviews that take place, as well as a survey, and there's over 50 surveys that were cascaded across not just our organisation but also South Staffordshire Council as well, because we undertake their internal audit service. So it's a pretty comprehensive process. So in terms of the report, that's attached as Appendix 1, which is on page 29 to 43 of your pack. The main bit that I want to draw to your attention, though, is on page 32 and 33, which is the overall conclusion. And you'll be pleased to be informed that we have been awarded the highest category for SIPFA's assessment. That says it's generally conformed, so it's probably not too gushy, but that's like any internal audit report, so we're getting a taste of our own medicine here. But what you'll see if you look on page 32 and page 33, which is quite nice to see visually, is a raft of green ticks going down in terms of genuinely conforms with all of the standards. There are no areas of non-compliance or partially compliance areas, which is great. There is one advisory action which is detailed on page 38 of your pack, and that's nothing for us to do at this moment in time. It is really just to keep a watching brief because the IA are looking to change their global standards, and as part of that, SITFA will look to then see how that dovetails into the current public sector internal audit standards. So that's something for us just to be aware of as we go through the course of 23-24, and then Lisa and I will sit down to ensure that if we need to make any changes to any of our governance documents or indeed any of our practices as a result of those changes to the standards, then we'll do so in good time. So Chair, just happy to take any questions in relation to the assessor's report or anything on this report. Thank you.
I can just say from my perspective, obviously, I think I was interviewed externally by asking a lot of questions, and he did go in quite depth really of how we operate under audit, and I have to say I can only compliment the team we've got at Stafford County Council. We've got an excellent team, which is why it's all in green. Thank God there's nothing in red there. So, but if there are any questions from any members? Graham?
On the chart on page 41, the Internal Audit Service ensures that recommendations made are proportionate. I was a bit sad to see that not green all the way across. I was wondering, is there a communication issue there? And the other point is the Internal Audit Service has the necessary resources, access to information. Again, that was, I'd expected that to be higher than it is. And if you would like to comment on that, thank you.
Yeah, I think overall, in terms of the first point around recommendations, then we always try to be proportionate, and as part of our QA process that the audit managers do, and also from both ourselves, because any limited assurance report goes through not just myself but also Lisa as well, we try and ensure that recommendations are proportionate and are practical. There is a bit of perception in terms of the auditees, in terms of what they think, and obviously everybody does have resource issues within their own services. We do aim to be proportionate though, but and I think long gone are the days where we expect things to be documented with lots of procedures. We have moved away from those types of bog standard recommendations as of today. But I think, again, it is around perception and what people think, and we do try and add value to all of the pieces of work that we do, and we do take on board what the auditees say, and as part of our exit process, when we're finalising the report, we do take on board the comments of the auditees when just fine-tuning some of those recommendations so they work for them as well as us. So we do do our best. In terms of the second point around resources, again, that is down to perception. We do pride ourselves in that we try and help all services as best we can, and particularly during COVID, we were a little bit pulled from pillar to post, and there's always more that we can do, but we do aim to target our resources to the most susceptible areas, and we do that through data analytics, as well as we have a very robust audit planning process. So again, we do the best we can with the resources that we have. Lisa, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just sort of to add an additional comment on what Debbie said as well, is that this is internal audit. This is about having a spotlight shone on your work, your practice, and sometimes people do take it very personally, when actually the work of the section is to look at the system and the controls and to make sure that they're working and they're operating correctly. But there's a human behavioural aspect within that, and perhaps getting a survey result or a survey to undertake it's their chance to sort of have their say on the internal audit service. But as Debbie says, we do work really well with the services to ensure that they get the most out of the section that we can provide.
Yeah, do you know what? That was exactly the point that I was going to make, because when you look at the survey results, The only one on there that does not agree, really, in any volume, is about his adept at communicating the results of the findings. I would have expected there to be an awful lot more of that, because as you've just rightly said, this is an opportunity for people who are being critiquing, who may not always find it acceptable to receive that news, as an opportunity to say, oh, here you go back. So I think that is wonderful. I love the oxymoron in generally conforms is the highest category. I know. So, you know, I think that definitely needs to be celebrated. And equally, one of the questions that I always ask of yourselves when we're having the audit findings come through is, what was the engagement like of the people who you're working with? Because some will be far more receptive to being told that actually things aren't good and things need to improve in other aspects as well. So I think definitely an opportunity to celebrate success there, and well done for those. And the fact that those survey results are where they are, I think actually are an indication of the excellent service that is being provided. And if there was one part of communicating findings, I often look back when we go through these and think, how on earth do you stop your head from spinning round when you're looking at all of these action points and these time deadlines that have been given to it as well, to revisit, to make sure that you know that they are being done. And obviously we've had explanations of the systems that are in place now to be able to do just that. So well done.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you there, Janice. Well, if we look at quality assurance ourselves, so we look at the risks, we look at how to mitigate against, how many times, and I'm sure I know the answer is 0, have we come up with there are no areas of partial conformity? I would say we've never, ever. So this is actually an absolutely excellent report. And Debbie, I can't thank you enough for all your hard work throughout the council. But they didn't need to do this. We could have told you you're brilliant.
Chair, can I just come back as well? Because obviously it's through Lisa's sort of leadership that we sort of get to be... Lisa makes me look good, I think.
Anyway. Right, so we're back over to you, Debbie. Agenda item 9, the Internal Audit Charter. Over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. So this is the regular report as part of PSIS again, the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. We are required to have a formal document that sets out various aspects of how the internal audit function works and how the Audit and Standards Committee works. So we have a formal internal audit charter that's at Appendix 1 to this report. It sets out some key sort of areas around the internal audit's position within the organisation, the reporting lines, the key roles and responsibilities of key stakeholders, and also details of the role in relation to the Audit and Standards Committee. So the Audit Charter was first developed back in 2014 following the publication of the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards, and then since that time it has been revised based upon best practice and any further guidance that's come out via CIPFA. The only changes this year are in relation to the SLT restructure, and you'll see that we now make reference to the Director of Finance rather than the County Treasurer's role. They're really the only minor changes, and in actual fact the external assessor, as part of our EQA process, did compliment us on the Internal Audit Charter, saying that it was a very well written document and very comprehensive. So there's nothing really further to add there, Chair, but again, happy to take any comments, but we have had this charter presented in previous years.
Yeah, it may be the finance side of me, but I always find it helpful to see what the budget was previously and see what the direction of travel is. Is it going up? Is it going down? The context of it.
Yes, in actual fact, there is one apology, so you'll probably see that I've highlighted that figure. That was actually last year's figure, which obviously clearly knew that you were going to ask that question. The figure is now 1,082,000, so it has gone up slightly, so I do know that figure.
if everyone's finished. Yeah, we've been asked to approve this internal audit, Charter 23, so I propose we approve it.
And I was happy to approve the internal. Good. Thank you very much for that. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank
On the
you.
forward plan.
Thank you, Chair. This particular document, it's a standing item on the agenda. It highlights those items that are going to come forward to future meetings of the committee. I've updated it now to take account of those meetings planned for 23-24 and an indicative agenda for those items. Following our discussion regarding the review of the effectiveness of the Audit and Standards Committee, there's one or two additional items that will need to come back into the committee, so I'll feed those in where appropriate to the forward plan. But I'm happy to take any questions if there's any areas that you feel need to be included within the forward plan. Thank you.
I think so too.
Absolutely. So we'll crack on to the closed part now. I think that's the public part done. I've got a bit of reading to do now. That the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 as indicated below. Thank you.